Hey, this is Nicky G and welcome to Better Commander. Today we're talking about Kethek, Crucible Goliath, and his Dog Pound. Listen man, all will be one is full of sweet cards for your commander decks, but this guy takes the cake. He's got card advantage, he's got a sacrifice trigger, and he's the coolest dog in the village. Now listen, we're going to dive right in, but first make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons. Not too hard, okay? You're going to bruise them. I don't have a Patreon, okay? I don't have sponsors. I don't have any of that stuff. But feel free to buy me a coffee over at the link in the description. That's the only way I get money for all this nonsense. I do drink a ton of coffee, and now I gave myself gastritis. Now let's take a look at this card. We got Kethek, Crucible Goliath, 2 black and a red for a legendary creature, Phyrexian Beast. It's a 4/4. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-legendary creature card with lesser mana value, put it onto the battlefield, and put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. I don't really know the lore on this guy, but I think he's kind of recycling things, throwing things in the graveyard and digging them back up like a dang dog in the backyard digging up a bone. Alright, he's a 4/4 for 4. That ain't bad by any stretch. And he has this cool Yukonuba dog show theme. Basically, you're trading in one dog for the next dog so that the next little pug can run the obstacle course. Kethek looks like a little pug. I want to build this with a hard budget of $100, so that's what I did for you kind people. The first thing you're going to note is that Kethek doesn't specify non-token creature, meaning you can copy whatever and sacrifice that. Remember, mana value is a copyable attribute. So say I make a copy of Grave Titan. The mana value is exactly the same as what's printed on Grave Titan on the copy. In fact, even the expansion symbol is a copyable attribute, so remember that if it ever comes up in conversation with a lady. While we're on the subject of Grave Titan, the guys falling out of his abdomen remind me of how seahorses are born. Go look that up after this video. It's disgusting. And when you're making token copies of stuff, just remember that all enter the battlefield effects will trigger at that point, at the time they enter the battlefield. So we can use these token copy creators to make sweet tokens and then sacrifice them at the end step for value. But let me introduce you to a little card that changed my life in 2010 or so, Act of Treason. So this is 2 and a red for a sorcery. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains haste until end of turn. Look at the art on this. This lady's taking a revenge on this guy after he broke up with her. Oh yeah? You think you can just go and date Tina? You know that she stole my eyebrows in middle school. I told you that on our first date. So now you see his strategy for Kethek start to take shape. Red has access to awesome effects like this, and it seems like every set has a threaten effect like this that has its own little idiosyncrasies. In any case, it's amazing to grab an opponent's creature, sacrifice it at the end step to continue the dog show. There's also a bunch of creatures that put themselves onto the battlefield for a reduced cost and either sacrifice themselves at end of turn or whatever, so we're going to take a look at those. Let's take a look at our creature suite. Well, first things first, we want to be flush with cards because we're casting a lot of spells and we're basically playing Magic the Gathering, gotta have cards, right? So there are 3 mana value creatures that draw us cards when creatures die, and getting them out there for free consistently means they're the only 3 mana non-legendary creatures in the deck. I'm talking about Grim Haruspex, Midnight Reaper, and Morbid Opportunist. These cards are going to keep our hands full and our hearts happy. Yeah, we're going to be happy, but what about our old buddy Solemn Simulacrum? At 4 mana value, we have the old Solemn Boy. He ramps, he draws cards. You know, if we sacrifice him, we get a card back. He walks around moping because his mom won't let him get his ears pierced. The poor guy doesn't even have ears. Oh yeah, look at this guy, best in show. Ravenous Chupacabra is the star of the Kennel Club, right? When he ETBs, all the ladies and the dog show judges, they come out and they're like, ooh and ah, isn't he so cute? And they scratch behind his ears and then he murders them all. Jokes aside though, removal on creatures is fantastic in a deck like this. Nightmare Shepherd, this guy looks like he's beckoning you onto the stage at RuPaul's drag show. 2 black for a creature. Enchantment creature, Demon, it's a 4/4 with flying. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 1/1 and it's a nightmare in addition to its other types. I've been looking for a deck for this guy forever. It kind of screws up our reanimate shenanigans, but that's life. I mean, steal a creature, sack it to Kethek, create a token copy. Remember, even though it's a 1/1, it still has the mana value of the original creature, so you can sacrifice it next turn. Prowling Geistcatcher, this is a similar effect, 3 and a black for a creature, human rogue, it's a 2/4. Whenever you sacrifice another creature, exile it. If that creature was a token, put a +1/+1 counter on this little nut. When Prowling Geistcatcher leaves the battlefield, return each card exiled with it to the battlefield under your control. This is a great double of theft effect. If this guy dies or gets exiled, we can plop those creatures that we exile, back out, have scrap for Kethic next turn, plus you get all the ETB effects. Then we have the Chaos Defiler. 3 black and a red for an artifact creature demon construct. It's a 5/4 with tramp stamps. Has battle cannon. When it enters the battlefield or dies, for each opponent, choose a non-land permanent that player controls. Destroy one of them chosen at random. What a fantastic creature to copy and sacrifice. The removal gets a bit random. You know, that's the fun of the game. Everybody's going to be like, oh, what are you going to get? But you're popping stuff for a discount. I love this thing. I actually built this model and painted it about 1,000,000 years ago when I played Warhammer 40k. You know what's really great with this commander? Creatures that are going to be sacrificed anyways. Take a look at the Blitz cards. Unfortunately, there aren't a ton that are any good, but we have Mezio Moga. 4 and a red for a creature Viashino Rogue. It's a 3/3. Whenever this guy attacks, exile the top card of each player's library. You may play those cards this turn. You may spend mana as though we're mana of any color to cast those spells. Has Blitz for 2 and a red. So you blitz it out for 3. You can sacrifice to Kethek at the end step, draw a card, and get the next less than 5 mana value non-legendary creature in the deck. This guy's just out there stealing Jeff Bezos' watch. Give me your watch, human. So persist cards and undying cards are also fantastic in a deck where you can sack them for value. There aren't a ton of really good ones. Puppeteer Clique is awesome. Since we're stealing and sacrificing our opponent's creatures, we can save this for when something juicy enters the graveyard. Oh man, speaking of Undying, let me plug my boy, Mikaeus the Unhallowed. 3 black for a legendary creature zombie cleric. It's a 5/5, has Intimidate. Whenever a human deals damage to you, destroy it. Other non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying. I bought the Livia Prima version of this card, and I bought the Livia Prima version of a playmat that I'm playing with right now. For a long time, this was very expensive. Now it's about $16. So it still didn't make the cut into the budget version, but it's way more affordable than it was. But there are other ways to give your creatures Undying or pseudo-Undying that I did include. You have Feigned Death, you got Undying Evil, you got Undying Malice. These are all basically the same card, except 2 of them get the creature back tapped. Plus these state under their owner's control. So if you steal one of your opponent's creatures and then cast this on, it's going to come back under the owner's control. You don't want to do that. These are obviously better used on your own creatures when they get sacrificed. But there are 2 cards that can target other players' creatures, and those are Kaya's Ghost Form. Hang on, I'll be there in a minute, I'm in my ghost form. And then you have Minions Return. Minions Return is 2 and a black for an enchantment aura with flash. Enchant creature. When it dies, return that card to the battlefield under your control. So grab a big fatty from your opponent, sack it to Kethic, get your dog show going, then get it right back. Magnifique. And we also want creatures that steal other players' creatures on ETB. Molten Primordial is great. This thing has haste, it's a 6/4. When it enters the battlefield, for each opponent, gain control of up to 1 target creature that player controls until end of turn. Untap those creatures, they gain haste until end of turn. Then you have Conquering Manticore. A Manticore is made when you smash a lion together with a bat and then give it the tail of a scorpion, dude. And when this thing enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature and opponent controls until end of turn. Untap it, it gains haste until end of turn. It's 4 red for a creature. It's a Manticore 5/5 with flying. I love the beautiful Chris Ron art on this thing. This is a card that's maybe a little underrated, at least in a deck like this. There's no combo potential because you have to gain control of something an opponent controls. 6 mana for a 5/5 with flying isn't anything to sneeze at, and you get a body to sacrifice to Kethic. Zealous Conscripts is a little cheaper, you can do all kinds of crazy combos with it, but with this thing you get a big flying body. Yeah, so how about we make some token copies? Well, Twin Flame is pretty good, and I'll tell you why. It's 1 and a red for a sorcery, it has Strive, costs 2 and a red more to cast for each target beyond the first. So you choose any number of target creatures you control up to the amount you paid for. For each of them, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it has haste. Exile those tokens at the beginning of the next end step. This thing is 2 mana, it's pretty cheap, but it can only copy creatures you control. Not like Heat Shimmer, dude. Heat Shimmer is 2 and a red for a sorcery. Create a token that's a copy of target creature, except it has haste, and at the beginning of the end step, exile this permanent. Get your opponent's big beater, then sack it to pull out the next contender, or you can target your own stuff with this as well. So in this deck, I also included a Reanimator suite. The new Geth is in there. I just want to try this guy out, along with Reanimate and Animate Dead. The new Geth is pretty awesome. I want to do a video on his lore and history. This guy's been through a lot, man. He's been decapitated like 6-7 times. In any case, we want effects that can target any graveyard, ergo the Reanimate and Animate Dead, because we aren't just sacrificing our own creatures in this deck. And then we have Braids, Arisen Nightmare. This is a great card. 1 black for a legendary creature Nightmare. It's a 3/3. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. If you do, each opponent may sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with it. For each opponent who doesn't, that player loses 2 life and you draw a card. So basically this functions as a great alternate commander if Kethic gets popped too many times, and this can also be a great value engine early on. So after playing this deck a few times, goldfishing it, it's a little more control oriented than I'd originally thought it would be. There's a lot of removal and things like that. It's very easy to build on a budget, and it can still beat face, dude. I built it, made very few changes. It just kind of worked the way I build it, kind of builds itself. So what cards am I missing? Let me know in the comments, and I wanted to give a special thanks to all the folks who watch these stupid videos and like and comment. May you all be completed by Elish Norn. Sneaky G from Better Commander signing off.